All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to just do a follow-up to my Derek Moneyberg video regarding the whole black belt situation, okay? And of course, the fact that he is a scammer who extorts his clients, in my opinion, in order to give him good reviews so that he can sell his course to even more mentally vulnerable individuals. But since that video, he did a podcast with Jake Shields where both of them just completely doubled down and made a whole bunch of absolutely horrible arguments in favor of Buffalo Bill Berg's black belt being a real one. So I want to go over some of that podcast, but before we get into that, I want to take a look at this short that Mr. Tummyberg uploaded to his own YouTube channel in the following days, okay? He tagged me in this video, which means he obviously saw my video, which, by the way, Derek or Dale or whatever, if you are watching this one and you see this, send me one of those rash guards, okay? My PO box is on the channel description, and I think it would be absolutely hilarious to own one of those just for the memes. Now, because he tagged me in it, it also means that that short was supposed to be somewhat of a response to everyone who was saying that he's bullshit. And in my opinion, it was a pathetic attempt to appear legitimate. That, again, in my opinion, anyone who knows what they are talking about wouldn't think it was a defense, and in fact would realize it actually makes you look worse. But anyways, let's get into the clips, okay?
And then, Jake said to me, Jake Shields, after he gave me that black belt, we did a podcast like a day or 2 days later, and he said, I really thought you were going to quit. He's like, I tried to get you to train with, some blue belts and purple belts that were like lower ranked guys that you would do better against. And you're like, no, I want to work with the champions. And he said, I tried to get you some local black belts. I tried to bring some black belts over that are like not elite, top level elite black belts, just some competent black belts from the community. And you're like, no, I want to work with the best guys. And that was my comparative others. I don't want to work with some guy. I want to work with you and all the best guys. And I think that makes a big difference over time. That's still a continuation of that thought from when I was 18 years old. It's still the same damn thought, just a different category or different context, where I'm like, no, I want to compare myself against the best guys. I want to learn from the best guys. I want my skill set to be close like theirs, closer to them. I want to close that gap. So he's like, that was so intense what you did. He's like, I really thought that at some time you were going to break and just be like, all right, I can't do this no more.
Okay, now, in my opinion, this clip only furthers the idea that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, to the point where he doesn't even realize that this makes him look, in my opinion, worse. You're telling me that in the last 3.5 years, you never a single time trained with someone who you, number one, were not paying, and number two, never trained with someone that was not a high-level black belt. This is absolutely fucking ridiculous, okay? In my opinion, in almost all martial arts, you need to, at some point, test yourself with people who are on your approximate skill level, as well as people who do not have a financial incentive to have you feel good about yourself. Okay, none of those black belts that you trained with, that you paid for privates, are going to actually try when rolling with you. They want to build your confidence so you continue to pay them. Okay, it's not fucking rocket appliances, for crying out loud. Now, look, you can obviously get better by going with guys who are way better than you, because most of the time they know about how much effort to put in, where you have to actually try, and it's not just extremely easy for you. But personally, I think you need both. Someone on or about your skill level to actually be trying, and also you can learn stuff from high-level guys as well. It just means that this guy has never tested himself against anybody that he wasn't paying, and it immediately stood out to me, and I just thought, Jesus fucking Christ, he doesn't even realize that this doesn't make him look better. Okay, anyways, let's get into the podcast that he did with Jake Shields.
Just got your black belt. Was at a conference for me, extremely fast, 4 years, which is a little ridiculous. But originally that was your goal. I kind of laughed at you and said, "Yeah, it's not going to happen." But
3 years and 7 months.
Yeah, but like I said originally, I'm like, no, you're being idiotic. But you're so obsessed, with the training every single day, putting in the work. I'm your head coach, but then you also brought in an entire team of phenomenal coaches like Hoist Gracie, Chuck Liddell, Glover Teixeira. You go on and on. Leota
Mikey
Moshida.
Musumeci, Gordon Ryan, brought in a lot of the coaches from the gyms as well. That Henry Hooft, Mike Brown helped with things. Greg Jackson helped with things. I brought in a bunch of the champions, and I brought in a lot of the coaches of the champions. And then I went to some of their locations and trained with them too.
Gilbert Burns helped you out a lot too.
Gilbert was amazing.
He was amazing, yeah.
Frank Mir helped a lot.
Frank Mir, yeah, that's a ton more. But yeah, let's think, because I did give your belt too much. I had to think, like, I know I was gonna get criticized for it, but like I talked to all the other world champions, and it's like, if you're making the improvements, it's like, what's the point of holding someone back? And it kind of shows that you were in an unusual situation where you could obviously afford, a regular person obviously can't afford to hire these type of coaches, but that does give you a cheat code, but it's still, you have to have the access. You still have to use your brain. You have to show up every day. You still have to work hard. You have to sit back and actually learn and listen. Otherwise, it doesn't make a difference. It's going through the motions.
Okay, now what I find absolutely fucking hilarious is they don't even have their story straight. Jake Shields says 4 years, and Buffalo Bill over here is very, very quick to correct him. Then they engage in a bunch of name dropping, okay, which is appealing to authority. Now, it's not necessarily a bad appeal to authority because they are obviously very relevant figures on this given topic. However, every single one of them you have been paying, okay? And they just acknowledge that here in this clip. He is flying these guys out for privates, which, as they mention later on, is extremely expensive. Now, what's strange about that is they kind of go back and forth on this point a few times throughout the course of the podcast, that it's insulting to suggest that these guys would do this for money, but also this guy is paying them a shitload of money for privates. Okay, fucking pick one. But either way, let's continue.
Well, it's not a cheat code in the sense. I understand why you say it that way, but I know I was born with less than average, and I didn't like it. So I tried both. I tried poverty, and then I tried prosperity, and prosperity is a lot more fun. But it's not that I didn't work to earn the other things. That the point of gathering resources is to compound the resources and get more resources. And some doofus out there who never did anything and never will is going to say, just because of money. It's like, all right, bro, but how many injuries and how many, there's not much tears, but there's a lot of blood and sweat. There's significant blood and a lot of sweat and a lot of effort. And so somebody who never did anything is not going to understand that, no matter how well you explain it to them. But people that did do something should be able to follow simple math. I spent about 3,000 hours of one-on-one time with the best coaching team ever assembled, and that still sounds surreal and crazy to me when I say those words. It's about 3,000 hours of one-on-one time. So if you went for a 1 hour session 3 times a week, and you did that for 1,000 weeks, then in some whatever number of years later, 18, 19 years later, I guess you'd get your black belt maybe, So when some other person says, like, it took me 13 years, like, that's not legit. Like, no, asshole, it took you 13 years. Doesn't mean it take me 13 years. I put in the, 3,000 hours of real training. And then, I spent more than 3,000 hours when I wasn't training, thinking about it and making the adjustments in my head.
All right, now something else that comes up multiple times is the fact that he grew up poor or had less than average, white trash, or whatever the fuck, okay? And I want to wait until a little bit later to get into how I know that that is not necessarily true. And something else that he says later on makes this claim even more fucking pathetic. But then we get into the big brain maths, okay? And he brings up how long it would take the average person doing an hour session 3 times a week or whatever. But never a single time does he do the math for what 3,000 hours in 3.5 years means for him, which we did in the last video. And as I said in my first video, it's about 2.5 hours every single day for those 3.5 years with 0 breaks, 7 days a week. Okay, which I find hilarious because before the Danaher Death Squad had separated into 2 teams, in the community, both in jiu-jitsu and also in mixed martial arts, people would talk about how unhinged it was that they trained 7 days a week with no breaks. By the way, Gordon Ryan took 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, to get his black belt training in that manner. So this guy in his mid-40s got his black belt faster than quite possibly the best grappler on the planet, at the very least outside the gi, okay? And people do not talk about Mr. Moneyberg here the same way they speak about someone like a Gordon Ryan or a BJ Penn or a Nicky Rod or anyone who has progressed through the sport exceptionally fast. One last point I find absolutely fucking hilarious is the I spent all this time just thinking about it, and it reminds me of that Luke Belmar guy and his whole study bullshit, okay? But either way, let's continue.
Watching tape, and a lot of it's thinking about it. People don't understand, like, processing through your head. I learned early on when I train you, and a lot of people come in and do 1 hour privates. We do sometimes like 5 hour private sessions, but sometimes you need to sit there and kind of stare off into space. I learned pretty early that you were like mapping the stuff out in your head, that your brain worked different, because I could see you like compounding stuff. So for a while you're like, oh, I'm doing this, but I learned after like a day or two, oh, you're just compounding in your head, because I could see when you'd come back, you're doing it better. So it's like, that's what you have to learn too. Everyone processes shit different. So for you have to sit there for a couple minutes, process in your head, and then go back and do it.
For me, if I visualize the thing that I'm supposed to do and give myself instructions, in my own self-talk of, the step 1, step 2, step 3. I don't need to say that, but I have to say, sequentially, do this, and rotate hips and do this other thing simultaneously, and then the third thing, and then the fourth thing, and then the fifth thing. But sometimes not the fifth thing, sometimes the sixth thing, depending on this other thing, And if I could build that map in my head, then it's easy for my body will go do the thing. If I
Jesus fucking Christ. Now, the only reason I wanted to show this clip was because, number one, I think Jake Shields is glazing pretty goddamn hard, which I think is funny, but also when trying to give an example of a technique that Mr. Slumyberg would try and visualize to help his body perform, he could only think of the most generalized and basic example of something you do during basically every single fucking martial arts technique, okay? Rotate the hips, are you kidding me? I'm not even exaggerating. Day 1 of kickboxing, I probably heard that phrase like 10 times, okay? Because they tell you to do it when throwing almost every strike. And this is the guy who Mike Musumeci claims is a fucking super genius, okay? Rotate the hips. All right, let's continue.
Yeah, that pissed me off. Some people are like, oh yeah, Derek spends money, so all these guys come and train him. It's like, do you really think like me, Gordon Ryan, don't have other fucking ways to make money?
You know where else I spent money on is when I went to University of Chicago, which was the number 1 business school in our country. You know what else? Not only did I pay my coaches in MMA, I paid my professors at my university.
Yeah.
It's called tuition.
But people still won't put up with disrespect, the people you're with. And that's why I got, I don't want to probably shouldn't be too public with, but Sean Strickland was the only guy, never met you, mouthing off by you. You really pissed me off, because like, look at all the fighters vouching for you, me, Gordon Ryan. You say, thinking we would fucking do that for money. So we got in a little bit of argument. I think we're cool. Hopefully you guys will meet and be friends one day, because I think it's just, from his perspective, I go, I understand why you look like a scam. You see a rich guy, got his belt so quick, but it seemed a little insulting to me to say like all these top fighters would hang out and be around you for money.
Okay, now firstly, I want to just point out that Jake Shields does like the Beavis and Butthead chuckle probably 1,000 times throughout a podcast episode. It is extremely frustrating to listen to, but at the same time, it's kind of funny. Now, in this clip, they touch on the whole Sean Strickland thing, which I do appreciate Sean Strickland coming out and saying something in the way that he did. But he was absolutely not the only fighter to do so. He might have been the most high-profile one, but there were a ton of fighters that came out and said, this smells like bullshit, okay? So they were either just incorrect or lying right there when they said that, but also they were going back and forth again. Oh, you think we would just do that for money? Me and Gordon Ryan aren't broke. Like, no, you're not, especially not Gordon Ryan, but do you think just because someone has made a few $1 million through instructionals or competition or whatever it may be, would just stop working? Especially someone like Gordon Ryan, who's fucking 30 or whatever he is, okay? I mean, I don't understand the point he's trying to make here. And then Mr. Moneyberg essentially contradicts him immediately by saying, well, yeah, I paid my professors at university too, the same way I paid my MMA coaches. Like, get your fucking story straight, okay? But let's keep going.
Well, from his perspective, I had friends that grew up in trailer parks that were white trash, and from his perspective, and so, he says himself that's how he grew up. So I don't mean to insult him excessively, but he says himself that's how he grew up, and I can relate to that because, I was a white kid that my best friend lived in a trailer park, and there was another trailer park down the street from us, and I lived in a tiny house in a shitty neighborhood. My father was in prison, and da-da-da-da. So I can understand elements of that. And again, I don't mean to insult him excessively, but to cut through the shit and get to the meat of that is like from that type of upbringing that both of us had, him and I. It might be difficult for him to understand, like, well, how the fuck did this guy do that so fast? I didn't do it that fast. From his perspective, he didn't get his belt that fast. How did I do that? And he's a fucking UFC champion, which is an amazing accomplishment. There's 119 people ever, male and female, in the past 32 years that got a UFC belt, and he's one of them. So congratulations, Sean, and good work. But from my perspective, is like, I found the best damn coaches. I did the same thing that I did in every other area of my life. Is I thought, well, if you're okay with your current circumstances, you're going to stay there. And if you want to have exceptional circumstances, and you have to engage in exceptional behaviors. And I did that. I spent 9 years in university, and I did that.
Okay, now I want to just point out, he claims he got his master's in business in about 9 years, which I'm not knocking. But if you're some fucking super genius who had the best professors in the country, went to the best school in the country, or whatever, the same way that you did for jiu-jitsu, how come you couldn't get that done faster? Do you know what I mean? That's essentially your whole fucking argument for how you were able to do this as fast as you did. But that only applies to one aspect of your life, I guess. And the reason it applies to that aspect is because of how intelligent you are. But you couldn't get your degree in business faster? Like, it makes no fucking sense. But we hear the beginning of him bringing up how he grew up disadvantaged or poor or whatever, when he brought up the kind of area he grew up in, a tiny shit house surrounded by trailer parks and whatever, okay? Trying to relate to Sean Strickland in some way. Now, I still don't want to get into how I know that that's bullshit, because I want him to tighten the rope a little bit more. Okay, so let's just keep going.
And the amount of the guys that are putting names behind you, like it's conspiracy. A lot of these guys have a lot of money. They're working with you. These aren't like guys that are broke. It's not like all retired fighters that are hurting for a paycheck. You're talking about current guys that are making millions of dollars. Guys like Gordon and stuff. Like, give me a break.
Gordon's made so much money. Chuck Liddell, Hoist Gracie. These guys have a lot of money. There's no reason they would. But how do you buy the integrity of Hoist Gracie? Or
no?
How would that happen?
And that you really understood training you early on that it wasn't just money. A lot of these guys, obviously got paid people good, but they're gonna tell you to fuck off. It's just money if there's any disrespect. I mean, we first met through Nick Diaz. I think out one night. You were about 50 pounds overweight. I remember you asked me to train you, and I'm just like, I like you. I guess I'm like, I guess I could try it for a month or two.
All right, now someone almost commented that exact thing on my last video, so I do wonder if it was Jake Shields' alt account, okay? But it doesn't need to be a fucking conspiracy theory. Like, what an absolute straw man. None of you need to be working together in order for this to happen, or have needed to conspired or whatever. He's paying you, end of discussion. No conspiracy needed. The same way he pays for media companies to cover him, which has been proven in depositions when Buffalo Bill over here sued YouTuber Spencer Cornelia. It's the same way he pays you guys. It just shows me that, as Tito would say, they're reaching for those grapes, okay? You need to pretend that people have like concocted some conspiracy up in their minds for it to be the case that his black belt is bullshit. But either way, let's continue.
No, we didn't have it easy. It's like, apparently from people who had some rough circumstances where I didn't grow up with shit. So it's like, I didn't get that white privilege I always hear about.
I want every privilege I can get. If you got some white privilege or black privilege or whatever you got going for you, appreciate that shit. I want some Asian math privilege. I want all the privilege I can get.
That Jew money privilege.
Yeah, I got Jew money privilege. I'll take that too. I want every advantage you should get. When you hear people say that nonsense, don't ever be ashamed when some buffoon says, white privilege or any of that nonsense. You be delighted for any advantage you can get. If your ancestors were more productive than other people's ancestors in the past, be grateful and thankful for that. And show respect and honor them by continuing that that tradition of prosperity and outperforming the other groups and subgroups out there. So I would never be ashamed to, and I'd encourage anybody else out there. No reason to ever be ashamed of, oh, you're privileged. So good. I don't want to go to a normal gym or a good gym or the second best gym. I want to learn from the best people in MMA. I want to learn from the best people in weightlifting. And I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. So yeah, Derek, you got the best coaches, and you don't look like a bodybuilder. So, hey asshole, I'm 46 years old, and I'm 10% body fat, and I'm stronger than you, and I'd beat your ass in a fight. Almost anybody. If you're not a professional fighter, if you're not a professional like power lifter or weightlifter, almost for sure I'm stronger than you, and I'd beat your ass in a fight. So but there'll be some critic out there who'll be like, your cheeks are fat. Like, yeah, they are.
Right.
Fuck you. Yeah, they are.
But I'll knock you the fuck out.
Yeah, there's always a critic, man. But not be you. I didn't want the second best people. I wanted to work with the best people for that reason. That.
All right, so he would never be ashamed to have some sort of privilege and would encourage anybody else listening to do the same. Don't be ashamed of it. Be proud that you grew up privileged, because it means that your ancestors did well and they worked harder than others and whatever else, okay? And to carry on the tradition and blah, blah, blah. Now, that is absolutely fucking hilarious, considering that Derek Moneyberg is pretending to be poor to, I guess, in his mind, help his image or some shit, okay? To show that he was all self-made and he did it on his own from the ground up or whatever. Now, some shit he says about his childhood is true, probably because it actually fits that narrative, right? His dad was a drug dealer. Again, this all came out in the lawsuit, but he clearly came from some level of wealth, okay? And I'm not even saying that that's how he acquired all of his wealth, but he absolutely got a leg up. And it's strange that he hides that while encouraging other people to be proud of it. Now, the reason I know that is because I found this, okay? And this lawsuit, which ended up being tossed out, shows us that Derek Moneyberg and his mother inherited 5 properties from his grandmother when she passed, which would probably suggest she also had some money that she left them as well, okay? Usually people don't just have 5 fucking properties they're holding on to, but no cash also. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know many people who came from a poor upbringing that inherited 5 fucking homes from their grandmother. And I don't want to go into depth on this because I don't want to talk about his family shit or whatever, but I'll leave the link in the description. For those of you that are interested, you can go read it yourself. Also, I gotta just point out, 10% body fat is maybe the wildest claim he's made, okay? Even fucking wilder than the black belt, honestly. Now listen, this guy has lost a lot of weight, but give me a fucking break, okay? The neck and the cheeks alone would make it so that you couldn't have another ounce of fat left anywhere on your fucking body. But let's just continue on to the last clip.
Because early on, I'm like, oh, why don't I find you a couple pretty good black belts in Chicago? They'll come in and give you privates. It'll save you a ton of money between these guys you're flying out. And you're like, no, I want to work with world champion.
Yeah, well, that was why.
Yeah.
That was why. I wanted to work with the best people that then you have the confidence that you're doing the right things. Yeah. You don't second guess yourself.
Which is pretty crazy, because I also try, I'm like maybe you should bring in guys that aren't that good so you could train in the beginning, because the first year or two, you literally just get mauled. Yeah. I've never seen anyone come up the way you did. I thought you were gonna break, quit, but then you managed to just keep just getting mauled till you started doing better. Now you're doing really good with a lot of really good fighters. I'm not gonna talk about any details or names, but there's dudes in there you do. People will be surprised, yeah.
There's a lot of UFC guys and world champion guys that can't tap me anymore. Occasionally I tap them and they don't tap me at all anymore. And that's not, I don't need to say their names, but out of respect for, and in further respect is that's the current objective situation because they trained me so well. They taught.
All right, so they get into the whole I wouldn't train with blue belts and shit again, but also claims that he taps UFC fighters on a regular basis and doesn't get tapped by them anymore, which I think is just extremely funny. At the end of the day, he can say whatever he wants on this podcast, and so can Jake Shields, but in my opinion, Jake Shields is very clearly a sellout. And just because he has money, just because Gordon Ryan has money, which, by the way, they're doing this thing where they are lumping every single person that has either done a podcast with him or given him a private lesson together. And it's ironic because they said that other people were creating the conspiracy, whereas they are the one lumping everyone together and acting like Gordon Ryan is vouching that this guy's a black belt at the same time and at the same level that Jake Shields is, who actually handed it to him. But until this guy rolls with someone who is legit, who does not have a financial incentive to preserve his confidence, then I'm just not fucking buying it. Okay, and Craig Jones offered him a spot at CGI. He won't take it, but it is what it is. I guess this guy's obviously a fucking scammer. He's trying to sell an image, and if after this podcast, which was supposed to be him clearing the air, essentially him proving everybody fucking wrong, if you still believe him, I don't know what to tell you, dude. You'd probably be the same type of person that would buy his course. But anyways, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that good shit. Okay, I'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.